Acting President Osinbajo says the answer to resolving religious conflicts in Nigeria lies with the church.
River State Election Investigation Panel recovers 111 million naira from officials.
FIFA bans 5 Nigerian football officials from its activities for 5 years.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we take on illegal migration.
Let me begin by asking a question, or perhaps a set of questions. Where are you watching this program? Are you somewhere in Nigeria or somewhere on the continent? That's Africa. Or are you outside the continent, say Europe or America?
Well, Blessing, let me take it from there and also pose a set of questions myself. Now, are you a bona fide citizen of where you are? Or did you migrate to the location where you are at the moment? And further, assuming you migrated, was this done legally? And if you are a migrant, what was the rationale for your movement?
Indeed, you need to accept the rationale, because some of them could be as frivolous as you can imagine.
That's right.
Did you really need to migrate? Was it for economic reasons, or you just felt unsafe where you were and therefore had to leave? Or perhaps, as it is the case with some people, you felt you would enjoy a better life elsewhere where you are now?
Now, just in case you're wondering what we're talking about this morning, let's spare you further trouble. We are actually discussing the perils of illegal migration, something that has seen many Nigerians and nationals of other countries dying trying to get into Europe illegally.
Well, you may recall or have heard of many deaths of persons trying to get to Europe through the desert, as well as crossing the Mediterranean Sea. Many could not make it through the desert, while others got stuck in some countries, such as Libya being one of such gate places that get this migrants into Europe and some other parts of the world.
Well, but just to emphasize that some persons made it through to the Mediterranean Sea, but unfortunately met their Waterloo at the sea. Now, others also got shipwrecked and were lucky to have been rescued by a number of coast guards that now patrol the border areas, particularly around some of the countries in Europe. Now, it is the case that a number of potential migrants have found out that things are not actually as rosy as they thought, or that if you get into Europe, then you begin to pick up the currency there, which is the euro currency, on the streets. Now, but of course, it's the case that illegal migration persists, and a number of persons who have succeeded in getting into Europe illegally live almost in perpetual fear of being found out and then deported. Now, some of them are also trying to engage in other activities that oftentimes are referred to as slavery. Still, a few, and just a handful, are lucky to earn some decent living.
Well, for some of these people, they need not suffer what they have put themselves through or are still going through if only they had adhered to some kind of instruction or asked questions. So why do some people choose to embark on such illegal migration? These and as well as other questions we'll seek answers to on today's edition of the program, Good Morning Nigeria. Welcome. My name is Blessing Abu. This program is coming to you on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
And I'm Kingsley Osadola. I also join Blessing and welcome you to this edition of the program, in the course of which we shall have our regular complementary segments, including business, newspaper review, foreign, and others. In the meantime, we're going over to the newsroom, and our caster this morning is Olajide Bello.
Good morning and welcome to the news. Acting President Yemi Osinbajo says the answer to resolving religious conflicts in Nigeria lies within the church. The acting president was speaking at the 14th Biennial Conference on the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria in Benin, Edo State. He said the reason the nation has not been able to put a stop to religious crisis is the hate, the urge to avenge every attack, while chronicling the series of attacks that had taken place since the 1917 till date. Acting President Yemi Osinbajo explains that the application of teachings of Jesus and love for fellow men, even in the face of persecution, remains a potent tool to combat religious conflict.
Some motor parks. It doesn't ask whether you're a Muslim or a Christian or whether you believe in God before it kills. Our mandate to all, without exception, is to preach the love of Jesus Christ.
And on security matters, in addressing the security challenges in Nigeria, the armed forces is exploring space technology for effective surveillance and intelligence gathering. Chief of Defense Staff General Gabriel Oloni-Shakin explained the need for massive deployment of technology in military operations at a lecture to participants of National Defense College Course 25 in Abuja.
The Nigerian Army has also established a space command that will consider the best use of space resources by the Army. In an attempt to exploit the space for military purposes, the Defense Space Agency is working on launching a satellite for the Armed Forces of Nigeria. To this end, the agency has successfully carried out 2 launch tests at the Center of Space Transport and Propulsion in Epe, Lagos.
Police Joint Investigation Panel into Rivers State rerun election says it has recovered 111 million naira from indicted electoral officers, security agents and politicians. Chairman of the panel and Deputy Commissioner of Police, Damian Okoro, said these while presenting the findings to the Inspector General of Police, Ibrahim Idris, at the force headquarters.
The sum total of 111,300,000 was recovered by the panel from electoral officers, 23 of them, out of which of 360 million was given by Rivers State government to them. 15 million was given to each of the electoral officers and 5 million added to them by the government of Rivers to the EOs who were in charge.
If you concur with our proposal, all of them will be charged to court. That's what I'm assuring you. We call on every Nigerian to have faith in the activities of this panel and to take this as a sort of is part of the process in refining and defining our electoral process.
From the Legislature, Senate Committee on Health has reiterated its resolve to legislate towards improving healthcare delivery in the country. Chairman of the committee, Senator Olanwaju Tejosho, gave this indication on the 2017 budget defense by departments and agencies of the Ministry of Health.
Know that in Nigeria we have about 1,500 children. They die every day because of severe acute malnutrition. Yet we budgeted 2.4 million last year.
The Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, has tasked the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission to be firm and fair towards implementing rules and regulations guiding the sector. Hamza Musa Makarfi reports that the board, which comprises 6 commissioners, has been inaugurated in Abuja.
Provides the stability in governance and regulatory action and institution building that the sector clearly will benefit from.
The Presidential Committee on Northeast Initiative is fine-tuning modalities for a comprehensive partnership with the Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, SMIDAN, in the interest of the region. Joseph Rock reports that already an enabling proposal is being ratified by 2 government outfits to empower the affected people.
For a concerted effort, all partners and stakeholders of Nigeria to contribute extensively and meaningfully to this world objective of rebuilding the Northeast.
And SMEDEN will be willing and ready to key into this initiative to provide what it has, that is in providing
the necessary entrepreneurship training that is needed.
And in the world of sport, FIFA has confirmed the worldwide extension of sanctions imposed by the Nigerian Football Federation's Disciplinary Committee on 12th May 2016 against the football officials Christopher Giwa, Muazu Sulaiman, Yahya Abdama, Sani Fema and Johnson Effiong for breaches of the NFF statute and the FIFA Code of Ethics. In accordance with Article 136FF of the FIFA Disciplinary Code, the chairman of the FIFA Disciplinary Committee has decided to extend the 5-year ban from taking part in any kind of football-related activity imposed on the 5 officials to have worldwide effect. The relevant member association as well as CAF have been duly notified of the chairman's decision. Members of the media with questions relating to the substance of the decision are kindly requested to contact the NFF. And that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Blessing and Kingsley after this break.
All right, thank you very much there, Lajide Bello, for the news. So still Good Morning Nigeria, and we're reaching you on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now it's time for us to take a look at some business stories. And renewable energy is said, of course, to be clean, cheap, and safe. And experts say its latitude can be explored beyond lighting houses to powering businesses, industry, as well as creating employment. Our correspondent, Kolo Mohammed, has details of this story in our business package. Kolo Mohammed reported our business package this morning. Blessing, just to indicate once again for the benefit of our viewers while we clear up the glitches there with our with our business package, to indicate that probably what we'll be discussing has to do with migration, illegal migration to Europe, and it's amazing and if not worrisome indeed that despite the publicity campaigns that have been mounted over the years, you still find some uninformed, misguided, or otherwise misdirected young Nigerians.
Exactly, with different promises being given to them by their recruiters, especially giving them these false hopes that it could actually be a rosy life out there once you cross these waters or the deserts and pronto, they're in paradise. But it's definitely not as rosy as it's being painted.
That's right. All right. Okay. So that's what we'll be discussing in our discussion segment in the course of the program. We're taking a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the program.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The federal government's social investment program has begun. The poorest and most vulnerable in the land get 5,000 naira monthly, and phase 1 has started in 9 states of the federation. 200,000 unemployed graduates have been engaged in the Empower Volunteer Corps, designed to engage 500,000 people. 5.5 million children will be fed regularly in the homegrown school feeding program, which kicked off in 3 states last year, with 9 more to be added this year. And under the Government Enterprise and Empowerment Program, GEEP, thousands of cooperatives, market women, farmers, and enterprising youth have been receiving between 10,000 and 100,000 naira soft loans since November 2016. The Social Investment Program has begun. It can only get better. We promise change. Change is here.
Okay, time now for business reports with Kulum Hamed. Renewable energy is clean, cheap, and safe. Experts say its latitude can be explored beyond lighting houses to powering businesses, industries, as well as creating employment. Let's find out more with Kulum.
Small and medium enterprises have a greater potential for creating jobs compared to bigger enterprises. Experts, however, say this potential is hampered by absence of critical infrastructure and presence of multiple taxation.
All over the world, the micro, small, and medium enterprises create employment for the mass majority of the people. And in every economy, especially in Africa, the potential of these MSMEs to replicate themselves and then create employment is always there. There are many, and many times there are no support for them.
They added that effective and flexible government policies will go a long way in ensuring that SMEs get the right boost to be effective.
Yes, there are quite a lot of things that could be done. One is to build the capacity of the MSMEs, building the capacity, training them, then creating an enabling environment for them to thrive. One of the major issues bedeviling the MSME is this issue of multiple taxation. The local government is harassing them, the state government is harassing them for taxation, and then these governments are not doing anything to support them. Secondly, the government can create opportunity for training to build the capacity of the promoters of the MSMEs.
The federal government recently commissioned a renewable energy program which targeted 20,000 households in the first phase. Experts believe the latitude can be explored further beyond lighting houses to powering businesses, irrigation schemes, industries, and job creation.
I tell you, solar is cheap, but the problem is it's not everybody who can afford the startup cost. The capex is high. If you can look down 6 to 10 years, you will definitely, break even. It will be much cheaper than other sources of energy. So powering small businesses is key, very, very key. I have a friend, Shegun Adaju, he's been doing very well. He's put together all the barbers, around Lagos Axis, formed, an association, and then he's been giving them lighting solutions. We've been partnering together, and then they pay over time. So a barber who spends money, 1,000 naira to power his small generator every day, doesn't have to spend that much anymore. He just pays back, and after some time, he owns the equipment, so he doesn't have to pay anybody anymore. But even beyond that, bigger industries are already going solar. Of course, the plants are there. The only challenge we have is there are so many regulations that makes it impossible for me to just generate power and sell to the man who is willing to buy. But I see that the Minister of Power promised that they're actually unbundling some of those things that have been signed into by a long time. So we're looking forward to that. If I can produce 2 megawatt, and there is a next door level or factory that is willing to absorb that 2 megawatt, there shouldn't be anything stopping me from doing so. So that is also certainly going to open up so many opportunities to explore and enjoy the solar. Yeah. I also think that the basic problem with employment generation in the country today is this fact that we don't have power. I've spoken to a couple of clients in the past few days who are about to shut down their business because of the cost of power. For example, you have a hotel where you're running a 500 kVA. If you have just one guest, you still have to run a 500 kVA generator. So it doesn't make sense. And
the latest closing figures from the Nigerian Stock Exchange closed in the red. Here is a graphic summary. That is business news at this hour.
All right, now it's time for us also to take a look at the headlines in some of today's newspapers.
welcome Bayo Atoyebi, the newspaper reviewer this morning again in studio. Good morning.
Morning, Blessing. Thank you very much. Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, Bayo, pleasure to have you join us today. Let's begin our review this morning by taking a look at the front page of this day newspaper, which has as its lead, Oshibajo sends Onoren's name to Senate for confirmation as CJN. And with the rider, NJC to hold the emergency meeting to the NJC stands for the National Judicial Council. So Oshibajo sends Onoren's name to Senate for confirmation as CJN. That's the list story. Now, above that, it's another headline says, Oyego and Makarifi square off and blame each other's parties for Nigeria's woes. Now, above the nameplate of this day, there's another headline, power sector investors demand settlement of 50 billion naira debt and call for tariff hike. And Dogara, who is Speaker of the House of Reps, 2.74 trillion naira spent on sector in 16 years with no results. That's the headline there above the nameplate of this day newspaper. So those are the headlines we're taking in the meantime from the paper. Blessing? Okay.
All right, I'll start off with the Nigerian pilots. Just below the nameplate, you will find this story. Power outage halts screening of ambassadorial nominees. That's the trend on page 6. Third, Ekiti Assembly issues arrest warrant on Fayemi. That's what you find on page 10. But leading for the Nigerian pilot this morning, it's a very worrisome story on abduction. And this times Onitsha-bound passengers abducted at Okene with a rider as insecurity worsens in Kogi State. That story you find on page 4. EFCC rearrest ex-governor Shema in Katsina. That story starts right there but continues on page 13. Okay, let me let Bayo come in at this point before we look at other stories.
Thank you. Let's start with the story about the Chief Justice of Nigeria. This day is leading with the story. Also, Punch has the same story, and they say that Professor Yemi Osinbajo has sent the name of the acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onoje, to the National Assembly for confirmation. The Punch particularly refers to his correspondent as saying that Justice Onoje's name will be sent this week to beat the February 10th expiry date. According to him, sources confirmed that background checks on him following searchlight being on the judiciary was the cause of the delay. He says, we are witnesses to the recent discoveries in the judiciary. The government needed to be sure that whoever is put at the head of that arm of government has a clean bill of health. The background check has been concluded and government is satisfied with its findings. The fear now is the Senate that is on recess, particularly that it is considering the 2017 budget committee will be able to confirm it. Meanwhile, no government official has confirmed this speculation. It is indeed the principle of separation of powers at play. The National Judicial Council recommending Mr. President required to do the check and approve, and the balance is for the Senate to confirm. Meanwhile, the other alarming story is in Kogi State, where passengers who were commuting from Abuja to Onitsha were stopped about 6:30 a.m. 10 men armed with guns shot into the air sporadically. The driver was forced to stop, he ran away, and 6 of the passengers had been kidnapped. Those who escaped with injuries. Meanwhile, the local government chairman of the area has declared a dusk to dawn curfew. Restrictions have been imposed on operation of beer parlors at a time limit of 8 p.m. The police public relations officer in Lokoja has confirmed this incident, and he said police are on the trail of kidnappers.
Okay,
all right, let's return to New Telegraph. New Telegraph has the story, Boko Haram pays girls 200 naira to detonate bombs. Boko Haram pays girls 200 naira to detonate bombs. And you have an excerpt there from an 18-year-old Amina, whose photograph is also shown on the page there, with a caption above it saying, Amina, the suicide bomber, the alleged, we'll say, suicide bomber. And here's the quote. It said, they gave us 200 naira each which they said we should use to buy food for ourselves. It took us 3 days to come to Maiduguri on a motorcycle. They said if we press the button, the bomb will explode and we will automatically go to heaven. That's according to 80-year-old Amina. Now, also there on the front page of New Telegraph, just immediately below the nameplate, you have a window of 4 headlines. Says, Ozekobe kicks as EFCC freezes account over Fayoshe's 75 million naira. That's on page 6 in greater detail. British Airways shuns Kaduna Airport, cites logistics. That's on page 3. And 6 Lagos PDP lawmakers set to defect to APC. That's on page 31. And Rivers government, police bribery allegation, shameful and defamatory. That's on page 5. And then above the nameplate of New Telegraph, 2 other headlines. NNPC moves autonomy for 25 units and subsidiaries and to implement efficiency and profitability framework. Federal government reads riot act to IOCs over contract value remittance. That's in greater detail also on page 5. And below the photograph of the main photographs on the front page of New Telegraph, there's another headline there, Senate screens ambassadorial nominees in darkness. And then you also have the Dogara, the Speaker of the House, lamenting the amount of money spent on the power sector. 2.7 trillion naira spent on power without light.
Okay, we'll return to the Nigerian pilots. There's still some 4 headlines there. Just below the photograph, we have the story on Osinbajo remains acting president. This is coming from the Senate. That's what you find on page 5. And still on page 5, the story about the 200 naira being the reward for going on suicide bombing mission. I was given 200 naira for suicide bombing. Boko Haram suspects at the cries. Police reports aimed at blackmail. This has come from the Rivers State government. With the rider says allegation of bribe to INEC officials false. 2.2 billion naira fraud allegation. Court freezes chief registrar to others' account. And on page 6, you find the story, come clean on Buhari's health status. Doctors tell presidency. Quickly now to the Daily Sun. We have just beside the nameplate, we got 200 naira to kill suicide bomber. That's still the story on the suicide bombing. But moving to the leading headline for the Daily Sun, how we killed Obasanjo's 3rd term bid. Governor Masari with the rider says, Nnamani and I rejected offer to be interim president and VP. Power sector must be rescued. This is a story credited to Senate President Bukola Saraki. Find us on page 8. Will stop fuel import in 2019. That's come from Kachuku. Page 43 will let you into that story. Nasarawa sacks 10 commissioners in cabinet shakeup. Page 13.
Well, let's start with the Rivers State story. Do you recall that the Inspector General of Police had appointed a 50-member investigating panel to look into allegations of bribe giving regarding the December 10th rerun election in Rivers State. And they found out that a total sum of 360 million were given to electoral officers. And so far, the investigative team have recovered 111,300,000 from 23 INEC officials. He said 3 senior officials were admitted receiving and directly, according to them, from Governor Nyesom Wike. 3 senior electoral officers each got 20 million, while the other junior officers got 15 million naira each. Meanwhile, 6 policemen that were also indicted for electoral malpractices have been dismissed and they are awaiting prosecution. The Inspector General of Police says a report will be formally sent to the Attorney General of the Federation and they will be prosecuted in court. Meanwhile, the Rivers State government, on whose behalf the Commissioner of Information has made a statement. He says that Rivers State government has challenged the police to show proof that Governor Nyesom Wike induced INEC officials. The Commissioner of Information, Dr. Tam George, says the state government consider the allegation by the police shameful and defamatory. Meanwhile, the story about the power outage, this was during the Senate confirmation process for non-career ambassadors. 46 of them were under consideration, but nevertheless, they went on and 23 has been scrapped. But Speaker Dogara has lamented that in the last 16 years, 2.7 trillion has been spent on power and nothing. And the Senate President also added his word, lamenting that what we have found is that privatization was done for Genco, Transco, and Disco, but we found that people who know nothing about distribution were the one that won the contract. One begin to wonder what was the role of the Bureau for Public Enterprises in this privatizing process.
All right. Well, that's the much that we can take in our review segment, just to indicate, of course, that there will be matters arising from all of this. You know, the stack of Naira notes that we saw yesterday on television reminds you of what played out on the floor of the National Assembly, where they were discussing Ghana must go. But it's also the case of the police officers. It was DSP who was beheaded in Rivers. We hope that, you know, that justice will also be meted out in that case. Maria, see you tomorrow.
Tomorrow will be another day. Thank you.
All right, let's see. Good morning, Nigeria. We're taking a short break now. When we return, of course, we'll be taking on our principal item for discussion, which has to do with illegal migration and the dire consequences.
Hear the call of change. Stand up, Nigeria. Change is here and it's going to stay. Change begins with you. Oh yeah, make me go. Dirty soul, so yeah, the change begins from within. Look at you, oh the ruler. Change begins with you and me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me.
Yes, it's still Good Morning Nigeria. We're showing live on the network service of the NTA. Now, as a prompt for our conversation this morning, we'll take this background report. Taking a look at illegal migration has increasingly assumed a troubling dimension as violent conflict and economic challenges in various parts of the world, especially in Africa, have caused the people to seek safer and better life elsewhere. Omotola Mojola put this together to precede this discussion.
The quest for greener pastures is the dream of every human. The avalanche of crises across countries of the world leading to the displacement of persons, hunger, inadequate infrastructure and lack of good governance, among other factors, have caused a social divide among people of different races, leading many to seek to go elsewhere, believing things will be better. The hope of a better life elsewhere has become a higher stake, despite the deadly voyage across oceans and the dangers of crossing the desert. While some have been successful in crossing borders to the land of their dream, others do not live to tell their tale, as the quest sometimes terminates with their bodies ending up on the ocean floor or being swallowed up by the sand dunes in the desert. Despite reports that have shown clearly the risk involved, more persons still leave their homelands for other places, Nigerians being a large part of the population. Research by the European Union reveals that Nigeria has the 5th highest number of citizens illegally migrating to Europe, and some 7,436 crossed in the second quarter of 2015. The UK government is said to be of the opinion that there are some 29,000 illegal Nigerian migrants in the country. Just recently, about 41 Nigerians were deported from the UK and about 500 a year ago. Over 10,000 illegal Nigerian migrants have also been reported to have died crossing the Mediterranean Sea, causing the nation to lose part of a young and agile workforce. Reports from the EU shows that Italy alone received 154,000 illegal migrants from Africa between 2015 and 2016, and thousands have been rescued from boats off the coast of Libya. Can Nigeria overcome this embarrassing storyline? If so, how will the country go about it? Join us as experts discuss the issue.
All right, Batola Mojola, thank you very much there for that background report. Now, we have been joined by three guests here in the Abuja studios. First, this time, we'd like to welcome the European Union Ambassador to Nigeria and ECOWAS, His Excellency Michel Arion. Your Excellency, a pleasure to have you join us on the program today.
Thank you.
Okay. And then we also have with us here in the Abuja studios the Comptroller General of the Nigeria Immigration Service, Malam Muhammad Babandede. It's a pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Good morning, dears.
Okay. And third on the guest list for us this morning is Mr. Josiah Emerule, as Deputy Director as well as Head of Press and Public Relations of NAPTIP. NAPTIP stands for the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons. Mr. Emerule, a pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you and good morning.
All right, listen.
Yes, thank you very much. We'll start off with His Excellency, the Ambassador, European Union Ambassador. Of course, this is not a new phenomenon for migrants or issue of migration from Africa to Europe, especially, and now it's becoming a worrisome situation. Why is this so for us at this point, and what exactly is happening when people move en masse from their different parts to Europe?
Yeah, as you said, I mean, we are all migrants. I think the Pope said that. Huh? He's an Italian migrant in Argentina. So we have centuries of history of migration to Europe or from Europe. So we, as Europe, we fully recognize that migration is intrinsic to the development of any society. So also we believe that migration is a very good thing for Europe and also for the countries of origin or of transit or of destination. Mobility is a very good thing. But as you recalled, recently, the last 3-4 years, we have seen a booming number of irregular migration. I think one has to make a distinction between the regular, the organized, the legal migration, as opposed to the irregular one. So now what we are seeing is both an increase of regular migration, and I repeat, it's a good thing. We like that in Europe because we have an aging population and we need fresh blood. But we are seeing also terrible figures in terms of increase of numbers in irregular migration. I would say, and with a higher proportion probably of Nigerian people. We have seen, if you look at where already various numbers have been quoted, but just one number, 1,000 4 years ago, 40,000 last year. So the numbers have been multiplied by 40. Well, I think basically it's a problem of economic recession, a problem of unemployment, well, a problem of poverty. And we have seen this poverty, unfortunately, growing in Nigeria, and it's directly linked to the demography. Also, we have seen the collapse of Libya, which has, I would say, facilitated the activities of illegal and criminal networks. Know that Libya is not a country anymore, almost. It's so easy today to cross the border between Niger and Libya, and then from Libya to take a boat. I mean, there are several factors that contribute to the increase of the numbers, but basically it's, I would say, poverty and, well, the youth have no hope in their future, so they are ready to run the risk of dying in the middle of the Sahara or in the middle of the sea. And that's really very, very sad. And for that, of course, we need I would say, a multi-pronged approach. We need a short-term response, saving lives. EU, we have...
All right, Ambassador Arion, just before we get into what is required to stem the flow of irregular migrants, as you indicated, let's still further explore what the causative factors are and why it appears so easy for thousands, as you said, if in the past you had probably 1,000 or so irregular migrants, now you are having the number ballooning to something like 40,000 according to you. Let's invite the Comptroller General of Immigration into the discussion at this time. Why does it appear so easy for people, young persons, as appears to be the case, to just walk across the borders headed to nowhere, sometimes to their doom?
Well, I think, what is happening in Europe is very important. Politics is very high in Europe. Unemployment is also a big issue in Europe. I know numbers have increased of Nigerians who have reached Europe, but we need to look at many factors. One factor raised by His Excellency is a conflict in Libya. Before the crisis in Libya, a lot of Nigerians were already on the move. We had a lot of Nigerians in Niger, in Mali, sometimes in Tunisia, and in Libya, specifically in Libya. Remember, Nigeria made an attempt to bring back Nigerians from Libya many years ago in thousands, which means there were already a lot of Nigerians who have left but have not reached Europe, but they were on the transit. When the crisis happened, they could not return. Mali is not safe. There's crisis of Boko Haram down south. Libya became broken. So the best alternative and nearest way for them was to move toward the sea. You know what happened to a lot of Nigerian migrants in Libyan conflict? Usually migrants are the victims during this crisis. So the increase in number of Nigerians, we cannot only see it from home, but from the number of Nigerians transiting who had already left Nigeria, who had no alternative than to move towards Europe. That's why you see the increase of number of people arriving in Lampedusa, like in Italy, has increased to almost 25,000. The increase, almost 37%. This has to be linked with issues to do with the crisis in Libya and part of North Africa. But at our borders, yes, I agree there are challenges. We do our best to see we man borders, but the borders are vast. And we have the ECOWAS agreement. You can understand that if you have an ECOWAS passport, you can go to Niger. So the border of Nigeria in terms of the sub-region is not in our hand. It's in the hand of Niger, for example, if you're going toward North Africa. If you have an ECOWAS travel certificate which allows you to move around the sub-region, you are free to, nobody will challenge you, you can go to Niger. But from Niger, we need to work together with the Niger so that we don't allow our citizens to leave the territories when they don't have visa to enter other territories. These are the practical reasons. But migration is natural. As far as I'm concerned, people have been migrating, as said by the ambassador. In Nigeria, even before colonial time, if you look at our history, people will say, oh, I came from the east. Or I came from, so we have been migrating. But when the colonial time came, cities moved internally, we moved around, and after independence, we are linked with our countries of origin. People started to move. But this movement is natural. We just need to manage them. That's what is important.
Okay, Controller, we'll want to touch on those areas of the issue of certificates, passports, as well as some of those means of actually traveling, which are actually fake or whatever ways that they have manufactured them, and take a look at that. Now, let's quickly get to Mr. Josiah Emerole. Yes, the issue of migration, whether legal means or through illegal means, is actually causing some other issues for us as a nation. People are being trafficked in their numbers, and this is becoming worrisome. But let's find out how much of this is contributing to economic degradation in the lives of these people, that is, these young persons especially, that have to be trafficked across this route from the desert to the Mediterranean Sea.
Well, thank you so much. The issue of migration, just like my colleagues on this program are saying, yes, it is the right of any individual to be able to move from one place to the other. But you see, the problem we have is the criminality that is involved right now. You have talked about trafficking. Yes, trafficking has become very popular within our country and also across our borders. And you see that every day people in the name of migrating are getting involved in various criminalities. We are talking about smuggling of migrants and all that. And all these things are telling so much on the image of the country. These things are also telling so much on the economy of the country, because the number of people, the number of children that are being trafficked are also causing us, is also causing us a lot of problems, in the sense that if these people who are supposed to be the leaders of tomorrow are destroyed at this time, what that means that those we are supposed to hand over power to in the future will not be there. So our own work in NAPTIP is to ensure that those who want to migrate do it appropriately, and that the lives of the youths of Nigeria, the lives of the children of Nigeria are protected appropriately, and to also ensure that those who get involved in trafficking, smuggling of migrants, or any form of migration crime are also brought to book.
All right, well, Mr. Merole, why seeking to establish a nexus between illegal migration and trafficking in persons? From the point of view of NAPTIP, how serious or what is the scale of the challenge that illegal migration poses to us as a country?
Illegal migration poses a very huge challenge to us as a country. One, when you look at the issue of illegal migration, the image of the country is at stake, because we have now become known as a country where every now and then our people are trying to traffic young people outside of the shores of this country for economic benefits. Now, it's leading us to a lot of crimes that are, leading us into a lot of corruption in the borders within the country, and you discover that at every moment, both law enforcement agencies, the other people who have one thing or the other to do in the course of migrating, transporters and what have you, they get involved into so many other issues that are not giving us a good image, that are even interrupting with the normal flow of the economy, because the money that is also being used by traffickers, they find illegal ways of also bringing them into the country. And these things are also putting a lot of problems on our economy. And we believe that as we keep working with collaboration with all agencies, with collaboration with all partners, that we'll be able to get Nigeria out of the image problem that traffickers, smugglers, migrants are causing us.
Okay, thank you very much, Emerile. We'll come back to you later in the course of the conversation. To return to Ambassador Area. Ambassador Area, you were talking earlier about the incentives that some of the irregular migrants have, in heading towards Europe, notwithstanding the hazards that are involved in the journeys. But how would you respond also to the view that there is a sense in which Europe benefits from the cheap labor provided by these persons, and therefore it's only perhaps when it is overwhelmed by the humanitarian crisis arising from a number of persons who are either shipwrecked that they begin to cry out loud?
Well, I'm not sure Europe is benefiting from this cheap labor force. First of all, because those workers are very often used in the informal economy in Europe, or they are engaged in all kind of criminal networks, drug trafficking, prostitution. Is very bad for them, and it's very bad for Europe. It has also an impact on the average wage of the workers in Europe. So it's not that we are certainly not at the level of Europe or at the level of the member states of Europe. There is no real benefit to that. But I mentioned in my first introduction that indeed migration can bring a lot of benefits. We need software engineers. Nigeria is producing a lot of software engineers. We would be delighted to benefit from the skills of those workers from Nigeria, while at the same time avoiding brain drain. I know the argument. There are more Nigerian nurses in London than in Lagos probably, and that's not good. What is good is that they go. the nurses go to London, they get trained, they return to Nigeria, and we can put in place a system of circular migration. So there are many ways and means to organize in a regulated fashion migration. So the problem also is that the more we have an irregular migration, the more perhaps regular migration is at risk, because that could trigger a tit-for-tat policy, which is indeed very bad. So I think we are working very well with the Immigration Service, I must say, also with MAPKIP, to work together, to join forces.
Okay, Ambassador, thank you very much again. As I said, we'll come back to you. Just, Mr. Josiah Maryland, one point that we would like you to address. From time to time, there are publicity campaigns mounted by NAPTIP and some other government agencies, and yet we still have this high number of young persons. I don't know what the demographics are now in terms of age of those who are seeking to cross the desert and then get onto all kinds of rickety boats and ships across the Mediterranean. Is the publicity or public enlightenment effort failing?
Well, it is not failing. Our public enlightenment efforts have been very successful, but you see, there are issues that need to be addressed to be able to keep our young people at home. There are factors that increase vulnerability to some of these things that are also beyond the control of NAPTIP. For instance, we're talking about poverty. It is not within the realm of NAPTIP to deal with poverty in our land. Because of poverty, young people want to move out. Even the old ones want to move to places where they can find green pastures. And there is this delusion in our society that the other side is greener than where we are. And we believe that when things like poverty is addressed properly, when things like ignorance, issues of education, that is accessibility to education, is provided to the people, employment is provided to the people, it makes it easier for people to say, no, we need to sit down and help in developing this country. It makes it easier for even our work to be done properly. We have lots of enlightenment campaigns that we get involved. Even the European Union, let me say it here, they are also helping us at this time through the International Center for Migration Policy Development to develop for us to do the infusion of trafficking issues into the curricula of primary and secondary schools in Nigeria. The essence is that we believe that we should catch these people young. And you catch them young from the kindergarten stage for them to know the problems of illegal migration and irregular migration. That helps them to know when somebody wants to traffic them, deceive them, to go out of their home environment to the city or to any other place. So that project is coming on stream, and we are doing it with NRDC. And very soon, the issues of trafficking in persons will now be taught properly in the secondary and primary schools. And we have lots of campaigns that are going on. But you see, people who want to get involved in criminality, no matter how much you educate people, they still want to find other ways of still getting involved in the criminal acts they want to do. But with collaboration that we have with other law enforcement agencies, even with National Orientation Agency, we believe strongly that very soon we'll get to our destination.
All right, Mr. Marole, still in line with that, because despite all these lofty ideas you're trying to bring together to actually encourage the youth to stay back, there'll still be those recalcitrant ones. What exactly is the punitive measure to be given for them finding themselves in those countries that they've migrated to, and for those who will not here as well? What are those consequences punitive-wise?
You see, first of all, in our laws, the consequences first is to be criminal. That is the trafficker, because we have laws that talk about export and import of persons into Nigeria or outside Nigeria for the sake of trafficking them. So, and those laws are very punitive because we have actually reenacted our law and now making it impossible for judges to even give options of fines. And it may interest you to note that a trafficker who is convicted, one of the things that will also be done is that the passport, international passport, is also seized and handed over to immigration service. And this person will not have access to any other passport except he gets a presidential pardon on that particular offense. And this is one of the things that makes it quite punitive for you to get involved in any form of trafficking in persons. But for the victims, we know quite well that even the psychological problems they go through, it is serious. And that is why when we even have them here, immigration service gets them and hands over to us, or any other group gets them and hands over to us, we discover that they are finding it difficult to stay because they have seen what is happening there. They have suffered a lot already. Some of them are even getting to the point where they want to pay off the amount they signed with their traffickers, and the traffickers push them out to be repatriated. So some of them, when they come back at that moment, they become very difficult to manage at the shelters. And when they are eventually out of the place, they want to find a way of going back. And that is why today, I must say, over 30% or 40% of victims from Nigeria who have gone abroad that have been brought back, about that number, they still want to find their ways back to those places because they have seen what they will gain when they gain their freedom. And we believe strongly that European nations, the destination countries, they are doing well, but they could also do better to ensure that this thing is reduced drastically.
What would you like to see them do?
What we want to see them do is to help us to get the traffickers who are domiciled in their countries. Because when you look at this whole trafficking issue, we all know that it is of a high profit. Now, most of the traffickers, they are domiciled in Europe. They hardly come in here. Even when they come in here, you find it difficult that you may not know that they are here. So we want a situation where the destination countries begin to get them over there, prosecute them, and if possible, to repatriate them here for prosecution here. Because we also have the Victims Trust Fund. We need money for those victims, for the Victims Trust Fund, and we can only fund that trust fund when we are able to seize the assets of these people who are out there doing all manner of criminality, because the victims need to be assisted. These victims, their lives have been destroyed and they need to get back to their feet.
All right, Mr. Josiah Merole is head of press and public relations at NAPTIP, that's the National Agency for the Prohibition against Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons here in the Federal Capital Territory. We'd like to thank you for being part of our discussion this morning.
Thank you so much.
Well, it's still Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll bring in another guest and then also continue with the Comptroller General of Immigration Service, who is still with us, as well as the European Ambassador to Nigeria and ECOWAS, His Excellency Ambassador Ariel.
Chairman of all chairmen. Let me wash your hand for you. Don't worry. Let me take toothpick and... According to Professor Tranquilizer, I am disappointed, aghast, crestfallen, and vanquished at your shameful display.
This week on your award-winning comedy series, Professor John Bull, starring Kanayo Okanayo, Mercy Johnson, Queen Mokoye, Yomi Fast Lanso, Goose Baba.
I'd like to see Mr. Udo Etu.
I hear you now, but find me something.
Are you mad?
Go.
Goodness, I got you showing your shit.
Oh, very nice man.
generous.
Okay, anything for the guests. Maybe feature or something.
Happy weekend, sir. Thank you.
Today is Wednesday.
Professor John Bull, this Tuesday and Friday, 8:30 to 9 p.m. on NTA Network, International, and Star Times.
I'm finished.
Who finished you?
Tell me something, man.
Over and out. Welcome to the new speed of life.
Whenever pain occurs, you want quick relief. Try new Nurofen Express. It goes to the source of pain and gets to work in under 15 minutes. That's why Nurofen Express delivers fast and effective relief. New Nurofen Express works at the source of pain. Fast.
Being a mom is great, but when your child has a fever, you don't know what to do. I trust Nurofen for Children to take care of my child's pain and fever.
Effective relief you can trust. NTA Television College, an affiliate of Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, a specialized institution charged to provide quality professional education in television production, engineering, and journalism. The college is offering 4 weeks course on computer graphics and animations to train new entrants and retraining of existing media operatives. Date 6th February to 3rd March 2017. Registration 100,000 naira with accommodation. Also, 1 week intensive course in advanced management techniques for executive officers, CEOs, COOs, managers, and heads of admin. Date 13th of March to 17th of March 2017. Registration 20,000 naira. Another 4 weeks course on principles and practice of marketing for marketing heads in radios and television houses, public relation agencies, media heads in advertising, brand support managers, media brokers, and heads of corporate affairs. Date 20th of March to 14th April 2017. Registration 100,000 naira with accommodation. All courses will take place at NTA Television College Rayfield Jos. For more inquiries, call 08069809807 or call 070-366-07155 or email us at ntacollege@gmail.com. NTA Television College, training you to be the best you want to be.
Thank you for staying with us. Still, the program is Good Morning Nigeria, and we're still taking a look at illegal migration as our topic this morning. Now, we still have our guest in the house. We have the European Union Ambassador to Nigeria and ECOWAS, His Excellency Michel Arion. We also have the Comptroller General of Nigerian Immigration Service, Mr. Mohammed Babandede. But joining us right now in the studio here in Abuja is the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Foreign Affairs and Diaspora, Honorable Abike Dabiri Erewa. Good to have you with us this morning, Honorable Dabiri Erewa.
Good morning. Nice to be with you. Good morning.
Okay, we'll stop off earlier.
That's right. That's right. Just before we pop the first question to Honorable Abike, let's get the perspective of the Nigerian Immigration Service. Do you have the opportunity of interacting with persons, who have either been repatriated or who have, one way or the other, on their own, returned to Nigeria? What kind of information do they give you in terms of their experiences and in terms of the condition of their colleagues who are over there? Because Maryland seemed to be suggesting a moment ago that there's that motivation for some of them to want to go back.
Well, I think we need to have a clear understanding of concepts. There's nothing like illegal migrant. We don't talk about illegal migrant. We talk about irregular migrants, those who travel irregularly. And you become irregular, either you enter the territory because you're not supposed to enter. You have no correct document, or you don't enter through the correct borders. Or after entry through the right way, you have your visa, you enter that territory and later become irregular by overstaying or by doing activities which is against the contract of your entry. For example, you enter a territory in Nigeria that you are coming as a visitor and you take up employment. That is irregular. You become irregular because it's illegal for you to do that. Many Nigerians have found themselves in that position, but how do they get to Europe? Or because we are more concerned to Europe, but not knowing that migration is very vast within the sub-region in West Africa. We have been moving around within the sub-region. But those who get to Europe, it is important to know that not all of them are trafficked. The number of people trafficked is negligible. Some of them travel irregularly by themselves, looking for opportunity for greener pastures. Some of them were smuggled. Smuggling means somebody who cannot enter, who is not qualified to enter somebody's territory. You allow him to enter. That person is being smuggled. He's not going to be used, just opportunity to enter that territory. That can be done even officially. when people are applying for visas for NTA, for example, if NTA crew are traveling to London for a visit, and the protocol added one name, that he's part of the crew.
Which is not done here.
No, I know. I'm just giving example. I'm giving example.
Let's say immigration service.
Okay, let's say another institution.
Yes.
When name is added, that person is smuggled. Because that protocol officer has smuggled that individual into a territory that person cannot enter. It doesn't matter, NTA or immigration, anybody. But persons who have been trafficked are persons who have been taken either in Nigeria or outside Nigeria, but after they reach their destination, they are continuously exploited. That exploitation can be labor, can be sexual, or any form of exploitation. I'm sorry to say that this form of mobility has two legislation, which we need to understand. There is a legislation against smuggling of persons, which is domesticated with the Nigerian Immigration Service. So anybody who is smuggled, we got the legislation 2015 when our act is reviewed. Any person who smuggles a person from one country to another, into a country or outside Nigeria, that person can get a penalty punishment if he's sentenced up to 2 years. But if a person is trafficked, which is also an offense, is domesticated in NAPTIP. So you can see a little bit complication in Nigeria in terms of strategy to tackle the offense of trafficking and smuggling. But what do we see for migrants who have returned? The number of migrants that have been returned in 2015 has almost doubled. The reason is very simple. There is a feeling globally, you see it in terms of election, in terms of campaign, in terms of emergence of far-right nationalists who have a feeling that migrants are the cause of problem of many countries, which might not be true. But this politics going on globally in the world, that if you remove migrants, you can do things better. If you build borders, your country will be safer. If you put restrictor control, jobs will be better for the citizens. So we are victims of reaction to global politics in terms of economy. There could be other causes that cause economic downfall in such countries, but people are very returned. What we know is that European Union has been trying to assist people to return voluntarily. These people have left, sold their property, traveled to Europe. It's not anybody's concern, but it's concern for our citizens to live in peace. We need our citizens who have the skill to travel through a legal and qualified way. If you're a medical doctor, why can't you discuss with Europe if you need a medical doctor officially? You don't have to pass through desert. You don't need to pass through the sea. You don't need to risk your life. You don't need to sell your shop to do this. It is better to negotiate. So what we are hearing from them is that, look, we have spent our money. We took a risk based on knowledge that we thought there would be job or wrong information given to us. But now we are back, we don't know what to do. So what do we need to do between us, sending countries and destination countries, is to find opportunity for safe migration. For migration by experts who can get good jobs. They need the job. There is going to be a huge gap in Europe in terms of workforce. Nigeria will be among the 10 countries that must export its labor. So this relationship must be well organized. We must negotiate. We must give opportunity to people to get a better opportunity abroad without being criminalized along the road and without threat to their life and to their property.
Okay, Comptroller, while you're taking different means to actually engage on all the areas of looking at this irregular and dangerous migration, like you have pointed out, our points is the NIS in actually tackling some of these challenges that you have itemized, and for those that are returned, that are under your purview?
Yes. First, a travel document. We are glad to say that our biometric passport is centrally controlled. But I said to you, leaving Nigerian border, we are surrounded by our member ECOWAS states, by Benin, by Niger, and by Niger the two. But mobility toward north is usually through Niger. Those who like to move by road is through Niger. And most of this travel with ECOWAS travel certificate, which we are changing. It's a commitment by ECOWAS countries to change our ECOWAS travel document to biometric travel document. So that a document given to you in your passport, it will be the same as your biometric passport. We are also working with ECOWAS to call meeting of all ECOWAS heads of migration in the next 1 or 2 months, so that we talk to them, look, if our citizens leave your territory, it is your duty to protect them so that they don't go to Libya, they don't go to territories which they are not qualified. We need to work together, members of ECOWAS countries. Secondly, we have developed a booklet with the assistance of ECOWAS and Spain government on information to migrants. We can't stop you from going. If you have a valid passport to go to Niger, we can't stop you. But we can give you information about what is the temperature in the Sahara. Some of them don't know the temperature in the Sahara. We need to tell you what it is to cross the sea. Some of them never swim before. We need to tell you that Europe is not paradise, that the jobs you are going to look for are not available. This information is called Passport to Safe Migration. It was supported by the Spanish government. With the ECOWAS, we have just published it, and we will give it to every traveler who is traveling. So information is key. But what is important for us, we can never refuse our citizens to return back. Any of our citizens who is returning, we would receive that citizen. With support of other agencies like NEMA, they can be supported to be integrated. Thanks God we are negotiating with many countries, group with EU. First, there are many countries like Switzerland, like Germany. They are given opportunity. If you want to return, you are in irregular position, you want to return voluntarily, we give you a certain amount of money to integrate into society. They don't give the money, they give money to civil society organizations, to NGOs in Nigeria who assist them. And we have seen many good examples of this. There are also opportunities for if you return safely, you cannot be blacklisted from returning on your own. But if you are deported, you can be stopped from going to Europe or Schengen territory for a period of 5 years or so. So there are incentives for people to return safely and get opportunity to be integrated in society. We are negotiating with that. We are also doing our best to stop people to live irregularly. Thank God this administration has committed a lot of resources for purchase of patrol vehicles, communication. This year we hope to launch a strong border patrol unit which will be patrolling the borders to make sure people don't cross our borders irregularly like this. With this, I think we can reduce the risk of migration globally.
All right, Comptroller General of Immigration, thank you very much. Again, we'll return to you in the course of the conversation. Now, just to bring in Honorable Abike Dabiri-Erewa, this is a matter that often engaged your attention while you were in the House of Representatives, and now you're also Senior Special Assistant to Mr. President on diaspora matters in addition to other assignments that you handle. From your perspective, why are we seeing a spike in the numbers of persons, in particular Nigerians, who are embarking on this perilous irregular migration? What is the incentive this time around? And what are you hearing in terms of the experiences of these persons?
Well, I won't say a spike, actually. I'll just say the world is now paying more attention to the issue of, well, as the CG said, irregular migration. It's something that has always been there. We've always talked about it. We've drawn attention to it. But now that's really affecting Europe, America, because of war, conflicts in other countries, Arab countries and all that, is now gaining world attention. It's always been there. So I won't call it a spike. But however, as the Comptroller General said, and I want to commend the Immigration Service for having done quite a lot in this regard, and as I said, they're going to do a lot more. So it's sometimes disheartening to see young, decent men and women actually go to waste their lives in some of these countries. And that is why we want to continue to work with other agencies to continue to spread the awareness and the information that is usually not greener out there. And I believe that with some people do know. You see, sometimes no matter what you tell them, some people, they will still go. You know, why do you want to put your life through all that risk? We get all sorts of reasons, they will still go. But the more we continue spreading the information, the more we continue spreading the message, and when we get real examples, which we're trying to, get. Like, for instance, two people came back from Libya, and they've been telling their stories. And they were saying, thank God Nigeria even brought us back. Thank God we have our lives back. Thank God we're even surviving. And I keep telling the story of a particular guy we brought back from Libya. He was locked up with his wife and his son, and he was going to be killed. But he got back to Nigeria, somewhere in Oyo State. He started by selling recharge cards, and he grew the business. And today, the last time I spoke to him, which was about a few years ago, he had built a house, he had another child, and he was in school. So we're still looking for it, and if you're listening to me, just show up and help others to help themselves. So it's disheartening, but however, we can't give up. So the more information we give, the more communication we give. When some say, well, it's poverty, well, why would you, for instance, if you had Sometimes you get as much, you could spend money, almost 700,000 naira, sell all your property, sell all you have, because you want to migrate to Europe. It's based on false information. So I think at this point in time, the more we tell our people, and then also when they come back, reintegration. We've heard a lot about the voluntary assistance return program. But we have to let our people know that some countries you can actually return voluntarily and nothing will happen to you. You are not going to be deported. You can go back again. In fact, just yesterday I met a team from Germany. They want to set up a German assistance center in Nigeria sometime soon. So they're here to do the groundwork. And there are about 12,000 asylum seekers in Germany. They're going to be denied, and they're going to be sent back. So those kind of people, for instance, take up this program, they will come back, there will be reintegration, they will put them through some skills training and all that, just as Switzerland is doing. And then the states too, like some that came back from places like Libya, and those state government, and right now the current governor is saying, them from. And then again, there are some families that actually encourage women in particular. I mean, there was the time we got so involved. We went to a family. I don't have to mention the state. And we spoke to the girl's mother. The girl actually called us on the phone. I was like, I've been locked up in this room. They sleep with me. I don't see the light. I don't go. I don't even get the money. And she was actually cursing her mother. So she gave us the mother's number. We went to see her, and we spoke to her. She spoke to her daughter. The girl was crying. I said, why did you make me do this? And the mother said, well, so when she sent a car. So what are you doing there? And I remember then that, it kind of reduced because we kept talking about it. So families also should not encourage that kind of, because at the end of the day, you're actually punishing men and women in particular, in this case, that can actually be of better value to the society. And we can also look at the economic benefit of migrants. Whether regular or irregular, you can't stop it, but you can reduce it. And no matter what happens, irregular migration should not be criminalized. It should not be a crime, but we can, work on reducing it.
All right, Honorable Abike Dabe, thank you very much there. But let's bring in the ambassador one more time. I'm sure there are some young persons who are watching this program, and the indication has always been that no matter the persuasion, there's some attraction for them to want to go to Europe. You are from Europe. What exactly is the situation? Is it rosy out there? I mean, yes, you have regular power supply, you have good roads, you can pay. Are those things free of charge? What is the situation that you can paint or sketch for any young person, probably with very little education or minimal qualification, who says, listen, I'm headed off?
Well, I would start by saying that it's quite a complex situation because you have all kinds of profiles. The Controller General has but it's very most of them working in the informal sector. So we have indeed, as you said, Europe is not a paradise. I'm not sure it can be described as a green pasture. We also have our economic difficulties, and there are less and less jobs available. And then the only jobs those migrants can be offered are very low quality, very low pay. So I would say the information, again, as the Controller General explained, information is absolutely key. They will not benefit from special conditions in Europe. It will be very difficult to access social security schemes, national health service. If they have an accident, they will not have access to hospitals. I mean, they will have, but then the bill will be terrible. And I think it's very important to inform people about the situation. It's important to prevent rather than cure. So prevention is absolutely key. Also, I must say, we are really in the middle of a crisis. There is a pike. There is a pike. The situation today is totally different from the situation 4 years ago. Today we are saving lives in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. The Italian Navy is rescuing a boat per day with an average of 100 people. They saved the lives of 30,000 people. That's totally different from the situation 4 years ago. So, we are spending billions on those naval operations that could be much more usefully used on prevention, but also on reintegration. I think it's very important to insist on reintegration. And I think Nigeria should invest much more on schemes for the integration of those people, on social safety nets that we can support.
Your Excellency will find out from Honorable what our own government is actually doing. But I'm still taking you back. There was a time there was this EU countries actually offering trade deals and investment in trying to support some of these areas to African nations. I don't know if that is still on or what exactly is on ground to actually see that some of those investments you're trying to, okay, let's help some of these African countries to actually decongest this irregular migrants and migration process. What exactly is happening to some of those promises offered in those policies?
Well, there are indeed special schemes with special visas for business people, for students, for skilled people, but this is not the solution. It's very minimal. So as I said, we want to develop and to increase regular migration and legal migration. Just to give you a number, in the last 8 years, European member states, because it's a competence for each and every European member state, they have issued 300,000 residence permits to Nigerians. So it works. 300,000 Nigerians have been issued residence permits. They are legally residing in Europe. And if you compare, it's more or less the same number. 40,000 irregular per year multiplied by 8. We are talking about the same number. So how can we make that those 300,000 irregular migrants become regular? Through those schemes, through I would say, I very much believe in multiple visas. Sometimes people are overstaying. People are
do the does it cross the borders, and who is responsible for the protection of irregular migrant rights?
Beggar Ime says, if Nigeria does her homework right in providing opportunities for our citizens, there will be no need for these illegal migrations.
Mohammed Salam has this tweet. It says, migration cannot be stopped in Nigeria until our economy gets better with infrastructure and institutional development, such as in advanced countries.
From Mohammed Jamil Sadara, says, reaction to unfair foreign policy of developed countries is illegal migration. Developing countries need to be self-sustainable.
And we have this again from the FYD organization, says the EU sadly treats irregular migration as a criminal offense. Rather, it should be treated as an administrative offense.
From Irene News, it says, if the EU wants to combat migrant smuggling in Libya, they need to better understand the economic factors driving it.
All right, so those are some of the reactions that we have from our viewers to this. Now let's return to Honorable Abike Dabiri, who is the Senior Special Assistant to Mr. President, Foreign Relations and Diaspora. There is a tweet there, or at least one or two tweets talking about the role of Nigerian missions. What exactly are Nigerian missions doing? I mean, if Libya has collapsed, what is it our missions are doing in Libya, in Morocco, and elsewhere that serve as gateways to these hazardous journeys across the sea?
Yeah, thank you. First, the guy who said, I'm going to plagiarize the guy who said, you can't be a lizard in Nigeria and an alligator in Europe. So, I'm going to plagiarize you. I like that line. Well, the guy, there was a comment about something about our embassy in Morocco. That is noted. Whenever there are complaints like that, the Minister of Foreign Affairs always tries to find out. So I'm sure the ministry will investigate, and if they're found wanting, they'll have to sit up. So everyone lies with every embassy. I have to admit that some do better than others, but we cannot generalize. But since it has been specific, I'm sure the ministry will look into it, and whoever is there will have to do the right thing. And yes, we agree, jobs have to be created, and that is one of the major pillars of this administration. In fact, I'll tell you that I know of 3 returnees that got into the Empower program. You know, they benefited from the Empower program, and what they did, they just went online and applied and got it. And then, you know, this government is encouraging agriculture. You know, but if we work to, like, you know, those that are coming back, UK will deport maybe in another 2-3 months, another 40 or so. And, you know, we need to work on reintegration. And also, one of the suggestions we have is working with the states. And in particular, we have 2 states that we're going to be working with, Edo and Oyo State. If you're a citizen of that state and you have to find yourself back in Nigeria, there are programs that the states are creating that you can benefit from. So I think if we do that with more states, yes, jobs have to be created, we agree, but sometimes we just have to be a bit more creative about the way we go about these things. That yes, there has to be more awareness about irregular migration. Yes, government has to live up to its responsibility, create more jobs, but most important is to know that no matter what, a lizard cannot be an alligator.
I just wanted you to speak to this as well. It's, we saw what happened in terms of the brain drain in this country some 30 years ago, following the implementation of what some commentators described as a disastrous structural adjustment program. You know, suddenly the naira, which at that time was exchanging, 1 naira was exchanging for $1 50 cents, it now became 3 naira to $1, on and on until what we have at this time. We talked about the various measures government is putting in place. But when people take a look at the exchange rate today, is it likely that they will listen to the preachment about the hazards of seeking to go to Europe if the person has access to €1 and then he can get, I don't know how much the euro is now, but of course the dollar is said to be about 500.
Well, as long as, you know, you see somebody who says, oh, I'm doing well, you'll always take the risk. But we're seeing that a lot of times the risk is not worth your life. So it's a risk, like I said, and we've said here, you cannot stop irregular migration, but you can do everything to reduce it. You can only try your best, but if, you tell somebody don't go and he or she insists, there's really nothing you can do. So it's more about just don't give up, keep talking. There will be a few success stories. And in terms of brain drain and grain drain, you see, it goes both ways. I know quite a number of Nigerians they regret. There's a particular Nigerian doctor in America who came to build a hospital somewhere in the East. Yes, he's going through a lot of frustrations, but you know what? He's so glad he's taking the leap. And he's so glad that this will not last forever. It's temporary. And no matter what, he's going to be much better than the person who is still going through what he left behind. And there's a lady who was in my office yesterday. She came back not too long ago. And you know what? She's also glad that she's back. So yes, it's not El Dorado. This is the most challenging period of our life. When you talk about the J curve, we're at the bottom of the J now. All we can do is go up. It's going to be painful. It's going to take time. But all we can do is go up. So it's tough, it's rough, but it's not better out there. The EU ambassador too has said it. The world is a more dangerous place now. It's getting very dangerous, and it's just not worth it. However, the risk has to be taken, but Nigeria needs to do what it has to do, create jobs, give better governance and all that. And this administration is doing that. But whatever the case, it's not worth going through the desert, going through all that pain. Look at what we had to handle, I think about 2 weeks ago. It was terrible what Nigerians went through. And Nigerian government is working with the MEMA and Immigration Service and IOM to bring another set again from Libya. When you bring another set back in, when there's another cry for, oh, we're in pain, look at what we're going through, you're going to set another plane and bring in another set. So it's a complex situation.
Okay, Honorable Jaguar, let's push more on what the Nigerian government needs to do more. Earlier on, Mr. Emerele talked about the need for some of those people who are back there in Europe and some other big nations, actually, you don't even know who they are and even when they're coming. Let's take a look at the issue of tighter border controls. These are areas that have been canvassed, whether from the EU countries as well as our country as well. Where do we need to do, what do we need to do more in actually making all these controls tighter?
Is that question for me or the CG? I think the CG immigration has actually answered that question, and a lot of patrolling will be done, a lot of policing will be done, and our borders need to get tighter. I'm sure the CG talked a lot about that. I heard him say quite a lot about that. And like I said, the Immigration Service has done much more than has ever been done. That is the truth of the situation. But like I also said, you see all this issue of Africans dying, it's always happened. We've always been at it, but nobody listened. Now it's affecting everyone, and that is why it's become an issue for the world. So hopefully this is a time to finally, hopefully, reduce it to the barest minimum. And we're talking about human lives here. We're talking about sometimes the moral burden, and even real. Therefore, players who have returned, even with the some of the British Home Ministry officials that were with us yesterday, it's like we're talking about reintegration. Switzerland has a program, Germany has a program. We hope that other countries will have the same program, and with partnership with the Nigerian government, we have to do what we have to do for our citizens.
All right, thank you very much. Now back to the CG. Let's get your closing thoughts on this. One of the issues you highlighted while explaining why it appears quite some challenge, to restrain Nigerians from going across is that we can walk easily to Niger. Is there any way we are upping our assistance or cooperation with Niger? Because obviously their resources might not be sufficient, in seeking to restrain anyone who wants to slip through their own equally vast borders.
Thank you. You know, I made a statement that you become irregular through two ways. You can live as a regular migrant, and after arriving in the country, you become irregular. Countries that are like semi-island, like UK, 90% of those who are staying in the UK in irregular position entered UK in a regular form. But the major way to enter UK is through the airport, Heathrow Airport or Gatwick Airport. It's almost an island. So most of Nigerians or other migrants who entered, they entered with the correct visas, as visitors, as tourists, as anything, that later stayed and became irregular. So these categories of persons are problems that does not tackle source countries. Because they left legally with the visa, but they become irregular. But majority of those who are involved, who are in Europe, in Western Europe, who arrived through Southern Europe, like Italy, are people who have left as if they were traveling to other countries in the ECOWAS region. Remember, we have a free among our member states. You can take your passport and go anywhere in ECOWAS without a visa. One of the routes which is predominant, 80% of our irregular migrant crosses is through North Africa. That North African border we have is with the Niger Republic. We have been talking to Niger. Last week I was in Kebbi, the border, to see our relationship with them. And what I found was disturbing. Our border side, we have small hut, ill-equipped, no patrol vehicle, but our colleague in Niger, well-equipped, with patrol vehicles, with a shelter. If persons are irregular, they can keep them. If their people are criminal, they can detain them. We don't have such facilities. We are telling government that investment in border is investment for all of us. It's economic investment, it's security investment. It's not only for immigration, but it's for the whole country in terms of customs, immigration, and all other things. I said this year government assisted us in border patrol units, but we cannot, however much strong men we have, we cannot do it alone. We need to work with other countries, like Niger Republic. ECOWAS is a great platform for us to do this together. We need to have joint patrols together. We need to share information, like the way the Europeans work. Europe has a Frontex, a common border agency, which you work in each country's territory. You can cross each other countries and stop irregular migrants and talk to one another. This is the type of dream I'm trying to build when we are inviting heads of migration in the sub-region. Look, if we find our citizens in your territory, consider them as your citizens. After all, ECOWAS is a citizenship. We said ECOWAS member state. We are citizens of ECOWAS. So if you allow a Nigerian citizen to cross the border, and Nigeria is doing well now, the number of increase you see, as I said, as far as I'm concerned, is not number of people who are living now. A number of people who have been pushed due to the crisis in North Africa. Libya, if you see the number of issues, SA to the president spoke about number of deportees, there are a lot of Nigerians stranded in Libya. So it takes more. We need information, we need law enforcement cooperation, we need to strengthen our border issues, and we need to work with the destination countries to make sure those who are returning don't go back. And the best way they don't go back is to ensure that they are reintegrated into society. Otherwise, they become criminalized and cause increase in crime in Nigeria, because the route to Europe by road is a training ground for criminality. By the time when you cross the desert, you stay a long time in countries like Morocco. Morocco, why we're having a lot of problems for the mission. I'm not standing for foreign affairs, but the number of Nigerians in Morocco who want to cross is so large that it is very difficult for the embassy at this time to manage as a consular issue. They cannot be able to take care of them, to return them. But I'm sad to hear that travel document will not be given. Anybody who is a Nigerian citizen has a right to return home. And it is
to take up that and look into it. Yeah. All right, there are more reactions from Nigerians watching this program. Let's quickly take a look at that. From Mohammed Jamiu Sadara, it says, what the politicians know how to do best is stealing and investing in foreign countries. Illegal migration will be the result.
And then we have this from Solomon Olakunle. It says, federal government should try to reduce the level of poverty and provide a conducive environment for the people. This will actually go a long way in stemming irregular migration.
Dele Jack Solomon, this is a national clarion call to our leaders in Nigeria to look inward towards creating a benevolent political and economic atmosphere.
And then Mohammed Jamil says, anyone who wants to go out there should remember that there is no free meal awaiting you, but hard labor. And they are abscond most of the time under duress.
from Solomon Dembo. When government fails to provide security and economic prosperity, then citizens must find greener pastures, even in the unknown.
All right, and then Jack Solomon again, Delegate Jack Solomon says, I don't think this trend, that is irregular migration, will stop until government provides the enabling environment.
And from Solomon Dembo again, it is unfortunate that even countries like Chad and Niger now have more pull factors than Nigeria.
All right, so those will be the last set of tweets that we are taking for the conversation segment today. Let's just get the closing thoughts of the European Union ambassador to Nigeria and ECOWAS. This is a challenge that you say the European countries are trying to withstand, but what more, for instance, can we expect in terms of collaboration between the EU and, shall we say, sending countries?
Yes. Well, I think I could make a comment on ECOWAS, because I think ECOWAS so far has been a relatively good achievement in terms of free movement of goods and people, despite all difficulties and challenges to cross a border. And here we have to make the distinction between the external borders of ECOWAS with the internal borders. Okay. As you know, and as the Controller General recalled, you can cross the borders with Benin or with Niger even without a passport normally. For that you should have a means of identification. I think a good solution, and we as EU and EU member states, we would be happy to help the government in giving a digital identity to all Nigerians, a biometric identity. You know, so far it has proven almost impossible to give all Nigerians an ID.
And well, NIMSI is working on that.
Well, they are working on that since when? They have issued 1 million ID cards. 1 million. They have identified 12 or 14 million people. You have many other agencies that have started identifying people, the banks, the mobile phone companies, the people issuing the driving license, etc. What should be done, I believe, is to merge all those data and reach a point where most of the Nigerians, the adults, but also the children, are given an ID, an identity, or a digital, and there are digital solutions. If India has been able to give 900 million Indians a digital identity, why not Nigeria? Yeah? So, and that is, I think, a very good thing, because then when you will have an irregular migrant in Italy without documents, because most of them have not come with passport. Again, the situation in the UK is different, because most of the people, as is what's rightly recalled, have arrived with a valid passport, a valid visa, and then they are overstaying. But this is not the situation for many other irregular migrants. They have come without papers, without IDs. If their biometrics could be captured and compared and matched with an existing ID database, that would help a lot.
All right, that's from the European Union Ambassador, Honorable Abika Dabiri. Can we get a closing thoughts very quickly?
Yes, we thank all those who made those comments. Indeed, government should provide an enabling environment, and government will provide an enabling environment. These are tough times, no doubt. These are difficult times, but these times will not last forever. With all the efforts government is putting in, no matter how hard this administration has worked in the last 2 years, it will take a while to see the results, but the results will come. And yes, government must provide the environment, jobs must be created, and infrastructure must be provided. We agree with you absolutely, and that is what the administration is working on. But you see, as we talk about irregular migration, don't forget that we have Nigerians all over the world doing great, fantastic things. And the good thing is these Nigerians are also working with Nigeria to make Nigeria a better place to live in. And there's also an advantage in what we're talking about. Time for Africa to look inwards. In fact, within the ECOWAS region, as we have heard, there's a lot of migration. There's a lot that can happen. There's a lot of economic benefits that we can get from working within Africa than going to Europe, where it's getting tougher anyway. So we hopefully, if some years from now, maybe Europeans will be migrating regularly to Africa. I won't be sitting here to receive them.
All right, Honorable Abika Dabiri, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Foreign Affairs and Diaspora Matters. We'd like to thank you for being part of our discussion this morning.
Thank you.
All right. We also would like to thank Ambassador Ambassador Michelle Ariel is the EU ambassador to Nigeria, and it was always a delight having you on Good Morning Nigeria. And then also we'd like to thank the Comptroller General of the Nigerian Immigration Service, Mala Muhammad Babandede. Thank you very much for your insight.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that does it for our discussion segment, Africa, the cradle of civilization, from where all of the human races emerged. So, sports now, which is our next segment. Champions need the Rangers need a win today to stay above the relegation zone in the Nigeria Professional Football League, which continues with week 7 matches. And in the English Premier League, despite being just 1 point above the relegation zone, Leicester City support Claudio Ranieri